Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special little series that I actually talked about this last night. So, if you don't know the story, last night while I was doing my Halloween stream on a GTA, which actually the quality turned out pretty well, I had mentioned that I was considering doing a series of streams every night leading up to Frontiers. And of course, whenever Frontiers comes out, I'm going to start the Let's Play there. And sure enough, that's exactly what I'm doing. So, you're probably wondering, so what's this series about? So this series is dedicated to talking about Sonic's mainline games. By mainline, I'm talking about like the mainline series. So like Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Knuckles, of course. I'm going to be talking about that. 3D Blast. I think that's a mainline game. Adventure and Adventure 2. Actually, hold on. I'm also thinking about playing a game while doing this. Yeah, so anyway, I hope you're all doing well tonight. I'm doing pretty good myself. And welcome to November. Many mature adults out there, like myself, like to commonly call this No Nut November. I think I'll probably have failed that already, because I'm just that excited for Frontiers. But in all honesty, I think this month deserves to go to the Blue Blur and some other notable games coming out this month, like God of War Ragnarok. There's some other games I can't think of off the top of my head. Yeah, so also you might notice that my throat no, not my throat, but my voice sounds a little meh. I'm not sick, don't worry, I can explain. So it must have been because of something I ate yesterday. I don't know what exactly it was, but I had a acid reflux thing going on last night. Like, I was on my phone because sometimes I'll go on my phone late at night just to look at stuff, and then I'll put it up. What ended up happening was I felt a burp, but instead of an actual burp, my stomach decided, hey, do you want to have the feeling of stomach acid singeing your throat? That's exactly what happened. I didn't throw up, don't worry. I didn't have to clean anything up. What instead happened was I had a acid reflux. And, you know, acid reflux, it literally feels like you're gonna choke on it. Not choke on it, but like, it makes you want to choke because it feels like it's still there, although it goes back down. And I actually looked up what causes that, and it's mainly stuff like bacon and stuff. So if you like eat a whole bunch of certain meats, then that'll definitely cause it. So I think it was probably attributed to that because yesterday I just came home, but prior to coming home, I ate stuff at Mammal's, and I think some of it was like pork or something, or beef or whatever it was, and yeah, that happened. Anyway, first of all, let me look up something. Sonic 3D Blast mainline game. Yeah, oh. Yeah, so 3D Blast it could be loosely described as a mainline game, but I think what I'm going to do is this episode I'm going to be talking about the original. Episode 2, which is tomorrow evening, it'll be Sonic 2. Sonic 3 will be Thursday. Friday will be what game is after that? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, right. So how I'm gonna do it is 1, 2, 3, Adventure 2. I'm not gonna do Heroes or Shadow the Hedgehog because that's a little on the nose. I will be talking about this. I'm kidding. Actually, yeah, Sonic 06. Because I'm talking about the history of the franchise. Like, the history of the games in terms of, like, how they've evolved over the years. And while I do understand that Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog are considered mainline games, at the same time, they're very, very similar, and they follow along the adventure games in terms of story. So what I might end up doing is in the Sonic Adventure 2 stream, which I'm doing Saturday, because that'll be the 5th episode. What I'll end up doing is I'll talk about Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog, because like I said, those games follow after Adventure in terms of story. So then after that, I'm going to do 06, and, yeah, I also know that there's Unleashed and Generations. So what I'm probably going to do is, episode 5 is these 3, episode 6 is these, and, episode 7, I think you might know what the most recent mainline Sonic game is. Not counting re-releases. I should also say that CD will be counted in the in this one. The reason being is because of the fact that Sonic CD itself takes place between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, so yeah. Anyway, how about we start with the very first game in the franchise, released 31 years ago. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog was first released in June of 1991, and it's probably one of the most iconic games in the world, and more importantly, it was the genesis it was the genesis to the entire franchise. And I'm not just saying that because, Sega Genesis, or I'm sorry, Mega Drive. I'm sorry. But it really was the genesis of the series itself. It introduced high-speed platforming to the world of gaming, and it introduced an iconic character that even today still has withstood the test of time. Although lately his games have seen better days, but hey, for what it's worth, the new game looks like it's going to be really good. I mean, have you seen the new prologue animation thing that just came out today? They literally made Knuckles go back to his roots. someone who's serious and at times stubborn, but at the same time he's still very protective of his home. I love what they're doing with that. It's bringing Knuckles back to what he once was, instead of a bumbling idiot. Of course, you can all blame Pontac and Graf for the aforementioned Knuckles being an idiot thing. But with Ian Flynn helming the story for Sonic Frontiers, or I think he is, I think our red space porcupine will be in a much better place. Anyway, so what did this game do exactly? Well, for one, it somewhat showcased the Sega Genesis's blast processing capabilities, otherwise known as Motorola 68,000. Yeah, but like I said, blast processing. So, what they meant by blast processing, which this was made more apparent with the game's sequel, is that essentially blast processing would make the game be free of any limitations of, hey, this game can only move so fast before it starts to slow down. But the Sega Genesis, with how powerful it was, it would be able to let Sonic move at the advertised speed. I mean, he is called Sonic the Hedgehog, isn't he? But, yeah, so this game was first released in 91, and, you know, with any first game in a series, it's not the best, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Because, you know, it was the first game of the series, so they were starting off small. So, for one, there was a speed cap with Sonic where you can only move at a certain speed, but that speed limit was eventually removed in Sonic 2, and I think it was also removed in a Sonic CD. Anyway, so what can I say about this game? Well, as it says here, it was well praised by critics and fans alike, and it made Sega like a major competitor with their rival Nintendo. Yeah, so you're probably wondering, so wait a minute. So you said that this game wasn't the best in the franchise, but it's still really good. What do you mean by that? What I mean by this is that there were certain things that the game couldn't do because they were starting off small. They were kind of testing the waters with this kind of gameplay. And even despite that, it turned out to be a major success. Yeah. So, let's just say this little blue hedgehog started off on a fantastic game console, which I happen to have a miniaturized version of. The Genesis Mini 1, not Mini 2. I do plan on getting the Mini 2 at some point, but not at the moment because I'm saving up for a PC. A better PC. Yeah, so yeah, so not only did this game spawn the creation of a speedy little fella, but it also gave rise to certain other aspects of this series that would become prevalent. For example, Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world. I didn't really get much sleep, okay? No. Okay, fandom, can you not? Okay. So yeah, this right here is one of the other things about the series that has stood with the series since its inception. So we have Dr. Robotnik, otherwise now known as Dr. Eggman. Although his name is still technically Robotnik, but he goes by Dr. Eggman. And this is actually a name that Eggman kept with him throughout the series until Sonic Adventure 2, where he had his name changed to Eggman. But in Sonic Adventure 1, he still refers to himself as Dr. Robotnik. But Sonic starts calling him Eggman, which is a joke about how Eggman looks sort of like an egg. And eventually it starts to stick to Eggman, and he actually embraces the nickname. Yeah, so this guy right here. Let me tell you about this. So, technically, Eggman was originally planned to be the protagonist of Sonic before Sonic was even a thing. But he ended up being recreated into Dr. Eggman. Something else I should mention. Robotnik was originally the name for the US territory, but eventually his name was changed to match that of the Japanese market because in Japan he was called Eggman. Yeah, so that's Eggman's original design. And then there's the modern design. That's my phone. Oh. Okay. So he likes fried chicken. Oh, right. At the time of the release of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega of America had little to no exposure to the established Japanese material for the game. Eggman in particular was named Dr. Ivo Robotnik by ex-Sega employee Dean Sitton. Or I don't know how to pronounce that. On the fan website Sonic Retro, Sitton said he chose the character's first name to be Ivo because his sister at the time had a Croatian boyfriend with that name. Because the word itself, when pronounced with a soft I, so Evo, it sounds pretty similar to the word evil. And OV itself, which is the name backwards, means egg in Latin. And of course, Eggman. But the name Robotnik was chosen because the word had Slavic roots and it had to do with robots and stuff. Oh, right, here it is. So, in Japan, he always had the name Dr. Eggman, but in the US, he was called Robotnik. However, more recently, starting with Sonic Adventure 2, he would adopt the name Dr. Eggman, but his last name is still Robotnik. But he goes by Dr. Eggman. And he, to this day, is still one of the most iconic villains in video game history. He may not be as menacing or scary as, say, like Gygus or the demons from Doom or anything like that, but he's still a very iconic character in the land of video games. But, of course, the other things that were spawned by this game include rescuing animals, getting the Chaos Emeralds, which in this game it was 6, because, you know, there were 6 zones. But, yeah. Not only that, but there was no way to turn into Supersonic because it wasn't a thing in that game. Yeah. So, what's actually kind of cool is that Sega would actually end up bundling this game with the console. Which is pretty cool, actually. And here's a fun fact. So this game not only is the anniversary, it's not only the date of which the game was released, but Sonic as a character was also born that same day. Not even a joke. And here's the thing. So the thing is, on the official Sonic website, they no longer actually reference Sonic's age. They removed it. And what I think they're doing there is they're making it to where it's like Sonic is aged up, to where he's like older, which makes sense because here's the thing. When the Sonic series first came up, or, you know, when it was first a thing, Sonic was already 15. But when it came time to make the new games for the Sega Dreamcast, Sonic had to look older while still looking like he would be a teenager. So he was still 15, but, yeah. Yeah, so yeah. Um, oh, right. I'm getting sidetracked. So this fella right here is, well, here's the thing. This is Sonic's, wait, Chaos Incident. Oh, right, they're talking about, Yeah, so right here it says when he was younger. And then, yeah. So I actually read somewhere that someone had said that, uh, and I'm not going to call him Classic Sonic, I'm just going to say Genesis Sonic because it's from the Genesis slash Saturn era Sega consoles. That Sonic, if you look at him the right way, he does look like he would be a younger Sonic because he doesn't have the same kind of body. Like, his eyes are not the same, his body's more pudgy. Um, not only that, um, but um, if you think about it, it does make sense to see this Sonic as the younger one. But nowadays, whenever I hear people call him Classic Sonic, the first thing I think is, you mean younger Sonic, right? Like, young Sonic? Because, like, young Sonic and older Sonic are like modern Sonic. Like, modern Sonic makes sense because it's like his present day form. This Sonic would be his younger self, but people still call him Classic because he belongs to a different era of Sonic. The thing is, though, because of how many times they've retconned how that Sonic is, because originally it was stated that, oh, it's just a younger version of Sonic, then they made it so it's like, oh, hey, he's actually from an alternate dimension, which doesn't make sense. Because he's literally from the same world. It's literally just a younger Sonic. Yeah. Yeah. So, right. So, for the first couple of Sonic games, including the early 3D games, you would have a spin dash, which is one of Sonic's attacks. So basically, Sonic would curl up into a ball and rev up, and he'd be able to shoot forward at a super high speed. And this would remain in the series up until, well, yeah. Um, yeah. So technically, it does appear in Sonic Unleashed, but you only do it at the beginning of a level. Um, which, anyway. He does retain it in, I refuse to call this game by its name because I've heard kind of bad things about it. um, oh yeah, in this game. I actually have Colors Ultimate. I think it's still on my PS5. But the thing is, in Sonic Colors, you can technically do the spin dash, but only if you have the Spike Wisp. However, if you're playing the DS version of the game, it's literally part of Sonic's moves. So you can still do a spin dash just like the old games. But that's partially because of the fact that the game itself was built off the framework of Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure. So you still had the boost, but you still had the spin dash at the same time. Sonic Generations, Spin Dash was only for classic Sonic. But modern Sonic, he will only do a Spin Dash whenever he's drifting. Yeah. And Lost World, it uses the Spin Dash again, which is kind of cool, but yeah. Yeah, this game. I actually like Sonic Speed Simulator, but some of the events can be very, very grindy. The fastest game in Roblox history. So fun fact about this. Whenever I first saw it, I literally thought that it was a fan game and that they were trying to profit off a IP that wasn't theirs. Little did I realize it actually was an official product and it was licensed by Sega, which is freaking awesome. Also, yeah, you can unlock this right now. There's an event going on where you can unlock Hedgehog Sonic if you do certain things. And it's not really as grindy as the other things as well. I was able to do it within like 2 hours, which is good. Because I wanted to do it as quickly as I could because I was getting ready to do my Halloween stream from last night. So, yeah. Yeah. So, I unlocked this. Oh, right. Yeah, about this. Remember how I said that I didn't want to call him Classic Sonic? This is why. He's still the same character. The only difference is, for one, like it says here, basically a past version of his modern counterpart from his younger days. Quite literally, they're saying that, it's Sonic whenever he was a kid. I'd like to think that he was 12 or 13 or something. Because, a kid at that age, they aren't fully developed like their more adultish looking counterpart. But, again, why is he still 15? He does not look 15. Sonic looks 15 like the modern Sonic. But, God, I don't get why, hey, guess what? Yeah. But, by the way, yes, that is the same Sonic that you played as in the old games. But, 3D. Yeah, so Um, Here's another thing. Sonic Generations, while it is a good game, it did ultimately lead to a very, very big cardinal sin with the Sonic series. They brought him back for Sonic Forces, otherwise known as, Sonic Forces Me to forget about a terrible game that came out about 5 years ago, hoping that the new game will be good, which I know it will. Yeah, so essentially, what I'm trying to say is, Generations is good, but unfortunately, yeah. This was a thing. Yeah, just be glad that the upcoming Sonic game is not going to go this way. Wait, hold. Development started in 2013. I should say, by the way, that Sonic Frontiers has been in development for roughly 5 years. And the game itself looks like it's going to be way better. Yeah, so, yeah, they didn't really repair the series' poor reputation. Mania is good. I actually had Mania right here. That game is great. I've seen my cousin play it. It's really good. Unfortunately, there's a problem with it. The true ending of the game leads into Forces, and Forces isn't really that good a game. So, I know I'm, deviating from the original topic of talking about the original Sonic game, but I've already talked about the general gist of it. How there's 6 zones, how there's 6 emeralds, there's all these different things. It spawned the series itself. But I'm going to go off on a tangent and say this. 5 years ago, or about 5 years ago, when this game came out, Sonic Forces, I remember getting that game when it came out, after I realized that it came out that same day. And I decided to do a Let's Play of it, not knowing, until a friend of mine told me, the game is literally about 3 hours long. And, the music isn't very good. You have the fact that younger Sonic is in the game, because, tie-ins. And, yeah, so here's a funny thing. The day before Frontiers comes out will be the 5th anniversary of, Sonic forces us to forget about Forces and look forward to New Horizons. Because, Sonic Frontiers is going to be a good game. We all know it is. I'm not trying to be hopeful, but here's the thing. Alright? here's the thing. So Frontiers itself, I should say, Sonic Frontiers itself will not follow after Forces. It's its own story. At least from what I could tell. Oh, wait. You need 10 gigs of storage on a Switch. Oh, wait. Hold on, what? I could play this game on minimum specs on my PC? Well, too bad. I'm getting it for the PS5. Because, this console is great, and if you ever get the chance, get it. It's great. Plus, it is starting to become more common, which is what we've been hoping for. Here's the thing. Again, you'll notice something. It's not saying anything about what was made before this, like the previous Sonic game. And the reason being is because of the fact that, for one, this is a brand new era of Sonic. So they're leaving off from Forces and they're making a whole new story. And yeah. So Frontiers itself, like I said, began development after Forces. Us to forget about Forces. And this is going to set a new template, according to what this says, for future Sonic games. So, should this game do well, it'll be very similar to how Sonic Adventure shaped this series to be, the 3D series it is today. However, yeah. Let me just say this. This game is going to be awesome. Let me explain why. From what I've heard from the people who have been playing the demos that have been out in various demo events, pretty much unanimously, people are in love with this game. Not only that, but there's also aspects of the game that harken back to the adventure era games, such as the darker story and how that sort of lines up with Adventure 1 and 2, because those games had a serious storyline while still having lighthearted moments. What else can I say about this game and how I know it's going to be a very big success? Well, let's just say that the game itself won the Future Game Award at TGS this year. And it was really, really cool. Oh yeah, and this game will have something in common with Generations. Supersonic and Chaos Emeralds will finally have a reason to exist in the game. Supersonic won't be DLC like in Forces, which is good. But not only that, but just I can't get over how good this game has been in terms of the overall reception. Um, Not only that, but this is the Sonic game that we've been needing, you know? Because for one, you don't have to worry about the limitations of, oh, linear level design. Like, there's the cyberspace levels, but you don't need to play those at all. They're not required in any capacity in order to complete the game. They're just there if you want to play them and check them out. You could still progress through the game just by, doing other things. So it doesn't really matter. As someone who fell in love with the series after playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, yeah. For signing up the Sonic newsletter for Sonic Frontiers, you get these. I kid you not. You get to wear these same shoes that Sonic wore in Sonic Adventure 2. And I have to say, it makes me feel like a kid again seeing that, because, like I said, so technically the very first Sonic game I had ever played was Mega Collection, and that's just a collection of the games. But the very first Sonic game that really drew me into the series as a whole was Adventure 2. More specifically, the battle version. It was also at that point that I barely knew about Sega making consoles. But, yeah. But basically, how you get these is you just sign up for the newsletter. And I'm gonna pull up my phone just to check it out. And, I'm just gonna say this. The fact that so the DLC in this game isn't gonna be like some crazy paid DLC. Instead, it's just gonna be, it's gonna be, cosmetics and stuff, which is great. Um, anyway, I'm trying to find it. Because I got a, email from Sega, I think, or Sonic. There was something, and basically it was because of the fact that I signed up for the newsletter. And so what it is that for signing up for the newsletter, when the game comes out, you'll get a download code that you can type into your storefront of preference. So for me, since I'm getting the PS5 version of the game, I'll be getting the code that's for that version of the game. Hold on. I'm trying to find it. Oh. Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah. So, October 3rd was when they did this. Yeah. So, yeah, it says here, thanks for joining. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, content, and offers about Sonic Frontiers, as well as other great Sega titles. We want to make your experience even better, so you'll receive an exclusive piece of in-game content after Sonic Frontiers has been released. It's our way of saying thank you. We'll email the PS5 code directly to your inbox after November 8th. So keep your eyes peeled for more updates. So there's a chance I won't get it on that date whenever the game comes out, but I'm perfectly fine with that. But what's really cool is not only is there that DLC, but there's also other DLC like the Monster Hunter tie-in. There's the Korone, which if you don't know them, they're a Japanese VTuber who is extremely popular, of course, in Japan, but she's also popular all around the world because, memes and stuff. But in all honesty, I highly respect them as they are a very entertaining person from what I've heard. But they have their own DLC exclusive to the Japanese version of the game, which is really cool. But not only that, if you get the deluxe edition of the game, you'll be able to get some other cosmetics. Yeah, so basically think of the cosmetic system in this game as a mix between Forces, which, yes, that's one of the good aspects of Forces is character customization, and the customization of Sonic Colors Ultimate, where you could change Sonic's gloves and shoes, although those were just skins. In this game, however, it's more akin to Forces in how you could just change the shoes and the gloves, and there might be some other stuff as well. I think it's like full body clothing, because if you see the hold on, because on the actual Frontiers thing, hold on. Oh, that's for the Nintendo Switch version, so it's probably going to be a whole lot bigger for the other consoles. Yeah, so it says here, for the Japanese market, you'll get DLC that was made in collaboration with Inugami Korone, the Hololive VTuber, and she's also the ambassador of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is pretty cool. There's also various other things, which is pretty cool. Here's the thing. There's also, like I said, Monster Hunter stuff. And this is going to be free, but it won't be there at launch. It's going to be in the game, on the 14th of November. So, that'll actually be not next week, but the week after that on the Monday. But what I can infer by this is that what'll happen is Sonic will be able to have, like, different parts of his body wearing different cosmetics, which is pretty cool. So you can have, like, a hat, you could have gloves, you could have, like, clothing on his body, you could have the shoes and stuff. Which is actually pretty cool when you think about it. And by the way, it is so good to see you again, Knuckles. Oh, man. So, let me explain why I'm saying this. When the Sonic series was being written by Pontac and Graff, otherwise known as Pontaf, that's officially what people called them, like as a duo. They would call them Pontaf because it's Pontac and Graff combined. they made Knuckles out to be some bumbling goofball instead of, this serious and stoic and, strong dude that he once was. But I have to say, yeah, so, yeah, so I gotta say though, I'm really glad that animation brought Knuckles back to his roots in terms of like, pardon the voice crack, in terms of his characterization, because when I was a kid and I first played like 3D Sonic games, when I first heard Knuckles speak, he was presented as a serious, foreboding, and at times cheerful character whenever like there's a good moment in the game, like he and his friends overcome a challenge that they were trying to work hard towards. But, he was still very serious at times, which makes sense. But I have to say though, the fact that they personified Knuckles in this animation, and likely in the game itself, because this animation is tied directly to Frontiers. I am so glad they they did it. So Knuckles himself, during the Pontaf era of Sonic, he was a little bit of a goofball, a little bit of a meathead. People might call it dumbass sometimes, because like in those games he wasn't presented as like the same character as he was in the older games like Adventure and Adventure 2, where he was serious about what he was doing, but he'll occasionally be happy and joyful with his friends whenever they overcome a tough challenge. But in the newer games, up until Frontiers, he was presented as a bit of an idiot. Example being this. Now, Sonic 06 is a good example of Knuckles still being his old self. But, yeah, so... yeah. Anyway, by the way, Shadow will not be in Frontiers. It was confirmed. He will not be in Frontiers. But, yeah. Honestly, I find that kind of a good thing, but at the same time, it is kind of sad. Yeah. Anyway, Anyway, yeah, so going back to what I was saying, here's to you, blue dude. Sonic the Hedgehog, you said it best.
What you see is what you get. Just a guy that loves adventure. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog!
And we're about to get a big adventure next week. Yeah, so, oh, here's another fun fact. Technically, Sonic's first appearance in a video game wasn't his own game. It was a game called Radmobile, which came out in, 1990. But the Hedgehog himself didn't have his own video game until June of, 91. So, it's really good to see, that to this day, this character is so gone on to be, like, extremely strong. And, I'm really glad that this series, despite its ups and downs, looks to be on a safer path now. Because, you know, Frontiers. Yeah. By the way, Roger Craig Smith, best dude of all time. I should say, I always thought Roger Craig Smith was an amazing voice for Sonic. The thing that was holding him back was the writing. But, yeah. Alright, so it says here on the Wikipedia, following the release of Sonic Forces, Sonic Team began exploring approaches for its next Sonic game. In addition to celebrating the series' upcoming 30th anniversary, Sonic Team also sought to define what a modern Sonic game should be and solidify the series' direction for the next decade. Forces received criticism for its short length and level design, so its director, Morio Kishimoto, concluded that Sonic Team's method of designing levels that originated in Unleashed would no longer satisfy fans. You know, obviously. Sonic Team ultimately determined that the series' traditional linear level design contained little room for evolution and felt it could not progress in this direction. Because of that, that's why the open zone level design, you know, came to be, is because of the fact that the cyberspace levels were essentially created to sort of fill the void of those linear levels. But, yeah, so it says here that the development has literally lasted 5 years, which is quite literally the longest Sonic game a Sonic game has ever been in development. Something else to keep in mind is that Sonic Frontiers itself was originally planned to come out last year, but it was later decided to hold back the game until this year, so that way they could have more development time. And just recently, the game actually went gold, so that's good. But, yeah, it says here writing. Ian Flynn, who wrote the Sonic the Hedgehog comics, published by Archie Comics and IDW, and episodes of the Sonic Boom TV series, wrote the script. But dude, they chose the right person for this. They chose the perfect person for this. Ian Flynn right here. He knows everything about Sonic. So he says here, Iizuka decided to ask Flynn to write Frontiers after reading his work on the IDW comics. He felt Flynn understood the Sonic cast and would bring a great improvement to the characters' emotions and dialogue. Iizuka noted that the story differs from previous Sonic games in that it is less humorous and does not make the characters' goal obvious, instead challenging them to figure out how to solve the problems themselves. Unlike prior Sonic media he had written, for which Flynn pitched the stories themselves, Sega dictated the premise for Frontiers and which characters Flynn was allowed to use. Nonetheless, Flynn considered a dream come true, but dude, the fact that they chose the... Let me explain why Ian Flynn writing Sonic Frontiers' script and everything else is a big deal. Pontac and Graff, the two guys that have been writing for the games until Forces, or I think until TSR. Guess what? They didn't really know much about Sonic at all. So they had this idea that they would just write it more like a Saturday morning cartoon. And look how that turned out. But with Ian Flynn, this guy literally knows everything. Everything about Sonic the Hedgehog. And I am so glad that they have done this. The reason being is, well, look no further than the Knuckles short that we got today. Did you notice how Knuckles was literally just like how he was in the adventure games? How he was guarding Angel Island, and how he was also open to exploring the nooks and crannies of his own island? And you even got to see Sky Sanctuary and all that other stuff. And you saw him being a badass again, just like he was in the movie this year. Like, sure, he'll still have that lighthearted moment every once in a while, but other than that, Knuckles is back to being how he was. It was freaking awesome to hear that Ian Flynn is writing this game. Because I remember reading about that last year in December when the game was first fully unveiled at Tokyo... No, not Tokyo. The Game Awards. And when I found out who and what Ian Flynn has done, my eyes lit up because I knew that the series was headed in the perfect direction. And I have to say, this game is going to be the Sonic game that will be the greatest for years to come. Even better than the adventure games, even better than Unleashed, even better than the originals, even though the originals are timeless. This is going to ultimately be the greatest Sonic game ever, if all goes well. And I know it will. You know why? Because Ian Flynn plus Sonic the Hedgehog plus a freaking 150 track soundtrack, including Monarch Rock, it was amazing. And I am so glad that this game not only is going to usher in a new generation of Sonic, a new era, So it's not a sequel to the previous games. It's its own story, but it's going to build from there. Adding on to this, Takashi Iizuka himself had said that should this game do well, this could lead up to a potential revival of the Sonic Adventure franchise. And this is something that many long-term Sonic fans have been wanting, is a proper revival of the adventure games. And honestly, I'm really glad that Sega has taken so much time and effort into making this game what it is. And personally, I cannot wait to do the Let's Play next Tuesday. I'm not going to play through the whole game in one sitting, but here's what I'm going to do for the Let's Play. So, I found out that Sonic Frontiers itself will have multiple save files. I believe it's 3. The first save file I will have reserved for personal playtime, so that way I can play the game, take mental notes as I play through it, and I'll remember what I've done. So that way, whenever I do a new episode of the Let's Play, I will use what I've remembered and show people how I've done stuff and how you can do it and do all that other stuff. But, you want to know something else? This game isn't going to be a 3-hour slogfest like Sonic Forces was. The main game itself takes 20 to 30 hours to finish, but getting absolutely everything in the game will take up to 60 hours. Which is astonishing to think about. Because I'd like to have you put that into perspective. How long is the typical Sonic game? A couple of hours? Maybe? Yeah. And of course, for getting everything, it could take longer. But having a Sonic game that, if you were to play through it, you could take literally just over a day, but getting everything, it'll take you, if you were to do all this, consecutively, it would take you 3 days in terms of consecutive time to get everything. That's awesome. Because it incentivizes people to explore, find whatever they can, doing all that stuff is great. And the control scheme, from what I've heard, it's amazing. You can customize how Sonic controls. You can upgrade Sonic. It's amazing. It's literally a Sonic RPG done correctly. But it's not an RPG like turn-based. But you could still level up various things for Sonic, like his speed and everything. Oh yeah, and just like I said, you can collect the Chaos Emeralds. But here's the thing though. Unlike Generations, where you had to do certain challenges in order to get these keys and stuff, you would have to do cyberspace levels, and for completing certain challenges in those levels, you'd be able to get vault keys. However, like I said a while ago, you don't have to do those. The cyberspace levels are completely optional. You don't have to do them if you don't want to. You could go through the entire game without playing a single cyberspace level if you so pleased. And you'd still be able to get the vault keys because you'd be able to find them in the overworld. And I have to say, that's exciting. And just so you know, each island you will have to find the Chaos Emeralds again and again and again and again, which is fine. But I have to say, this game is definitely shaping up to be the Sonic game to define the next evolution of Sonic. It is going to be that Sonic game. It's not going to be another Forces. It's not going to be another Sonic 2006. It's not going to be another, Sonic Lost World. It's not going to be any of that. Because from what I have seen and what I have heard, it's going to be a completely breathtaking experience. It's going to be a game that, if you're a new Sonic fan, you're going to love it. If you're an older Sonic fan, you're absolutely going to love it, because there's plenty to see and do. Anyway, with that being said, I know I deviated from the original topic of talking about the original game, but there wasn't really much to talk about, aside from the zones and everything. Which in order of appearance, it's Green Hill, Marble Garden, Spring Yard, Labyrinth Zone. Wait, no, I think it's Scrap Brain. Labyrinth Zone, and then, yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, with that being said, thank you very much for watching if you have. If you've enjoyed, then please like, comment, and subscribe. You don't have to, but it's certainly appreciated. So it's not mandatory, but again, it's certainly nice, but that's up to you. Anyway, with that being said, good night, and I can't talk. I'll see y'all tomorrow night, where I will talk about Sonic 2 and CD. So I'll talk about CD first, and then 2. Anyway, good night.